Hello, let's start watching this AMAC. I have no clue what this is about, so
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another stream that we are bringing to you today. I'm super excited. We had one of these last year, I believe, sometime before, I think it was before our Alpha 1 test that we did. And I had a really enjoyable time actually doing that AMA because there was a lot of fun questions. And obviously, we have our monthly live streams and we show a lot of things there. And we try to dedicate as much time as we can at the end of those live streams for Q&A. But obviously, there's just so many questions that get asked from the community, and it's really a great thing that you guys are so involved. Those of you who are tuning in, that you ask these questions and you give us feedback, and so it means a lot to us to be able to kind of have.
so I did a stream to repeat the usual advertisement they do to themselves to be more believable, and that's ridiculous. That's hilarious.
This exchange with you to kind of answer these questions, but from these answers, it spawns a lot of conversation in the community across the forums, across Reddit. And it's really great for our team to kind of go in and take a look. And our team does go in quite often and look at the Reddits, look at the forums, read the threads and the responses, the experiences that all of you have had across different games. And obviously a lot of these ideas, a lot of these systems are very familiar.
Now he puts systems, familiar. What are you talking about?
To many of you out there, and we don't have to reinvent.
Also, he does have a very fat, high, how do you call it? And I mean, it's funny.
The wheel to make a really good MMORPG, and a lot of our concepts come from the games that we've played in the past, and we've kind of brought them together, as many of you know, in one single game that is Ashes of Creation. So really excited to kind of go through this. We've obviously, as many of you are aware, we had a thread on our Reddit, and for those of you who went and posted questions there, you had an opportunity to upvote the question.
It's not normal to have a face so. I mean, he is very. How you say it? It's very. Full. Okay, it's very. And I think it probably have some problem, some health problem. Hope you are fine, Steven.
That you thought were most pressing or that you wanted to get answers for, and the community team has put together these questions in a list of 50 that we'll see how many we get through today, but has put them together. I haven't had much of an opportunity to kind of look through them, so I'll be answering them a bit off the cuff, just obviously from my knowledge, and if there are some things that I can't answer, of course, I will say that we'll be reserving the answers for later, but I don't expect that we will have that issue. So I have my trusty iPad here. I'm going to take a look at some of these questions, and we will begin. So the number one upvoted question that was present on the Reddit thread was, since Ashes will need a healthy and active player base on each server, do you have a plan in place to deal with server merges? And that was asked by Hybrid PS2. So to answer that question, Yes, we do have a plan in place for how we would want to go about conducting server merges. For all of us who have played MMORPGs, we're aware that over time, populations can dwindle on a particular server. New user acquisition isn't usually the strongest aspect of MMOs. Typically, you see a large portion of the population start on day one, and a lot of MMOs suffer a bit of attrition going forward from that. And of course, there are opportunities to recoup that population during expansions and during updates. But ultimately, most MMOs that we've played fall into needing to have server merges. Now, that can become a little bit complicated, especially when you're dealing with things like property ownership and owning homes and having mayors and castles. All of those things contribute to kind of a complication in how server merges are conducted. For Ashes of Creation, excuse me, I might cough a little bit during this AMA, but I apologize.
Yeah, I mean he's more full of. I mean, he does have more fatty face, and recently started coughing in the lives. I don't know if you noticed that. Do some blood analysis. I don't know. Uh, Sometimes when you do a life that is very focused on the computers, you can get problems, health problems.
In advance. For Ashes of Creation, we have also an element of world building, and that's how these cities obviously come up. Now, we know that Ashes of Creation will facilitate regionalized server locations, and this means that prime times in those regions will adhere to the associated time zone that they're in. And as such, server merges will be conducted within those particular regions between servers that share that prime time zone, so that we're not mixing populations with different regions as we do the merges. That's one aspect of the merge strategy that we have as part of our
One moment, I missed
solution for server
that.
merges in the future. Now, that can become a little bit complicated, especially when you're dealing with things like property ownership and owning homes and having mayors and castles. All of those things contribute to kind of a complication in how server merges are conducted. For Ashes of Creation, excuse me, I might cough a little bit during this AMA, but I apologize in advance. For Ashes of Creation, we have also an element of world building, and that's how these cities obviously come up. Now, we know that Ashes of Creation will facilitate regionalized server locations, and this means that prime times in those regions will adhere to the associated time zone that they're in. And as such, server merges will be conducted within those particular regions between servers that share that prime time zone, so that we're not mixing populations with different regions as we do the merges. That's one aspect of the merge strategy that we have as part of our solution for server merges in the future. In addition, there is something that we would consider a weak and strong server. When we think about pairing servers into those merges, we think about how the populations have progressed at the time the decision gets made to make a server merge, and we would have the weak server merge into the strong server. Depending on what that means from the player's perspective of things like usernames and the ability to change those names because names are unique on a per server basis, there would be an opportunity for players to make name changes who are coming from the weaker server. And then when it comes to land ownership and property ownership, the weak server that's merging into the strong server, there's two potentials there. One, it would be a reset on those land ownerships and homes for both servers, and they would conduct the opportunity to reestablish their ownership when that merges.
There is only one possible fix for this, Steven. If you merge servers that aren't meant to be merged, then it's just an idea that can't work. Okay, you can maybe fix things by making up more problems, but that's not the how to solve the issue. How to solve the issue is that you make servers that you can make a video game work based on the population. So the video game should be balanced and designed to make players be able to play even with low population, um, and that changes it. That simply change how the video game works and the experience. Okay, so some players can choose between high populations or low populations. That's it. You should not merge or do those kind of bad things. So, I mean, Steven uses Blizzard-like practices more often than you think, and his design choices aren't very different or any better. They just improve the things that you complain about, but you are not designing the video game, so it's not that you have access to the video game and know how to can get real feedbacks. So that's a messed up organization between players and or simply followers and video game developers. You can't design a video game based on a group of designers that don't know what is the content that you are making and don't have access to the development team, because there are no feedbacks. There are just ideas on how to make the video game.
Complete. Or the alternative, if there's a much stronger server, then the weak server would be coming in with an opportunity to make that population reacquire those houses. This is something that is, of course, important, and you guys giving feedback on kind of the types of strategies you've seen in the past.
How can is he going to be able to manage that? This will lead to many problems. They have so many problems, and they don't know how to fix them.
Past would be super beneficial to comment on and talk about how you would foresee server merges working best in Ashes of Creation. The second question that we have next up is, what work or milestones still need to be completed before Alpha 2's launch? And this is from Judgment Dismal. A large portion, a large portion of what we are doing, as you guys saw in Alpha 1, a lot of core systems were stood up. That's progression, that's AI behaviors, that's open world tech, that's distributed services, distributed server.
Just say everything, okay? Because I mean, this Alpha 2 will come in the next few years, maybe 10 years, because they probably didn't made almost anything that they promised. And each time the game becomes more complex, the more time it requires to design the video game, because the more problems are going to add up each time you put flow-led design choices.
That's the ability to maintain persistence, to acquire and progress, combat stats and the skill trees, nodes leveling, collecting experience, all that stuff we saw as there was no NDA present for Alpha 1. So those are kind of core mechanics, right? And when we think about how Alpha 2 kind of steps up further, a lot of that is putting in content for those core mechanics, adding additional classes, which of course come with different types of feature requirements on an ability system basis, adding content to the quest systems, including events, adding aspects of the naval systems, the professions and gathering and artisanships. You know, a lot of that is what is being worked on currently towards alpha.
So he's admitting that they still didn't have done anything, they still didn't manage to complete anything, or at least have even a prototype of any system, any kind of, I mean, they actually they are saying that they are fucking making a video game at such as at to the rhythm of a turtle. I don't know, a worm. It's like looking at a mountain or with a castle in vista and say I'm going to reach that castle, but then you decide to walk to to be blind and to walk with only one leg and one jump at a time reach the mountain.
Two's end. And of course, each time we have a monthly live stream, we show you guys progress in some of those systems, a large portion of which was our combat revamp, which of course has taken a lot of player feedback.
You need to work to little things and improve them. You don't need to add the quantity, okay? It's always the same problem. Quality is important.
As we go into iteration phases for that stuff. But when we talk about what is outstanding work, milestones that are required for Alpha 2, much of it is content. Because Ashes of Creation intends to be a very rich content game. We've always talked in the past about...
Doesn't mean anything. Rich content or low content. I mean, it doesn't mean anything because, of course, a video game has to have content. Otherwise, it's just a cover. So we are going to have a lot of stuff in the video game. In our video game is going to take a lot of your time. Trust us. So taking time, it doesn't mean content. It's just a bad way to say it.
How we combine the elements of both a theme park and a sandbox element to create decisions that matter, to open doors that have actual content behind them, as opposed to putting that kind of responsibility on player-driven mechanics that a lot of sandbox-type games have utilized in the past. So much of it is content.
Most of your design isn't some sandbox. It's very, very, very raw style design. So just to let you know, Steven.
Related. Number 3. So the number 3.
I mean, they did add some sandbox features. I mean, they talked about those features. They still didn't manage to make them work.
Loaded question. How many abilities will be made or are planned to be made for each archetype? And this is from Sanic Explosion. Well, first it depends on the archetype. Some archetypes will have some more active abilities available or some less active abilities available than others.
That's a bad news because giving more abilities to an archetype means that it's going to have more advantage and a more complex style. It also depends on the abilities, but it just just give a round number, okay? You don't need to be precise.
It also depends on combination of passives as well, and how that interchanges with the active skill sets and the acquisition of those skill points and distribution of those skill points. That's important. But when we think about, on average, what is each archetype going to have from an ability standpoint, it's roughly going to be about 35 to 40. Right? And of course, that doesn't mean that a player will have the opportunity to spec into all of those abilities. You're going to have a limited selection of skill points available in order to spec out your class. And that's going to be important because...
So, I mean, this is a fucking news because I knew that he didn't design any spec feature. Maybe he means the archetype or the class choice. If that's the case, then the abilities are going to be very, very little, because if you have 8 archetypes to choose from and 14 abilities and 40 abilities, then it means that at least each archetype is going to have two unique abilities, right? So if you have a warrior mage, the mage is going to add maybe or change, modify 2 abilities at least, or maybe more. So then a warrior or a tank ranger is going to change other 2 abilities. So if the warrior have 40 abilities, and each archetype have 2, then 2 for 8 are, I mean, this means that the tank will have 20 abilities, and then based on your or the archetype you choose, you have 2 or 3 additional abilities, meaning that for playing you are going to have maybe 25 abilities at best, if this is what he intended. If instead he's talking about another feature that implement the specialization of his class. So for example, a warrior mage that specializes into portal fighter, for example, or a firefighter, or a fighter, or I mean, all those kind of mages, warrior mages. Then you have another feature, but they say that they didn't want to add such a feature, so I'm a little bit confused now. Okay, so
Provides not only agency to the player,
so there are not so many abilities. It depends by many things.
to kind of make those types of decisions, but it gives a diverse, excuse me, it gives a subset diversity within that archetype where decisions kind of choose specialization paths within the skill tree for that particular archetype. And we've talked about how, we don't want to have.
Okay, so now you said that your archetype has specialization, and yes, you just contradict your idea on one of your design ideas, that you didn't want to add specialization, but instead this hybridation of classes was your only idea. Then you are now contradicted it, saying that there are indeed specializations like World of Warcraft, like feral druid or balanced druid. And okay, that put some good news, so, or bad news.
What a lot of us have experienced in other MMORPGs, obsolete or not utilized abilities, right? So we kind of keep that selection relatively limited. Next question, number 4 question. I'm not sure if it's a good thing that it's number 4 or number 1. No, I'm just kidding. But this is a simple question. How are you, Stephen? I'm doing great. I'm doing very good. We've had an awesome year this year, and we have some still fun activities and streams that are planned in October, November, and December.
When he talks, he doesn't show any passion. He doesn't seem passionate about. He just try to give the impression of passion, but he doesn't seem. Slowly, it seems a little bit sick from his voice, his face. And he doesn't seem like he has a real passion like a real video game designer has. He's just a guy that wants to achieve something. So So yes, hope you did enjoy this, because you for sure did l- enjoyed all this, even if it's a little bit uh, broken or a little bit scammy.
And I'm looking forward a lot to, I think this is our 5th year doing Extra Life, which is going to be next month. Um, that
I mean, problems, we face problems all the times.
that's always a fun time. But more importantly, I think, what keeps my heart warm over these years, having, building games is difficult. Building an MMORPG is probably the most difficult type of game that you.
Making difficult video games is difficult, sure. Making video games should not be difficult is if you are good and skilled. They always say things to excuse the fact that they make mistakes, and you just say you are not a good video game designer, but you're trying to do the best to achieve something that people want. So this show you that you are a good guy. Okay, this makes everything better. It's the truth is much it's always better, Steven. So I'm just saying that you don't need to hide certain things, okay, to make things work or to be famous.
Can build. And our MMORPG is a particularly ambitious one. So there's a lot of
Yes,
work
too
that goes
much
into it.
ambitious.
And, watching the team work hard at creating something that they want to bring to make you guys.
To make you, I don't know why we are working hard. I don't know. We are doing this. Yes, I mean, he maybe wanted to do something good, but even if he is not the exact. I mean, maybe he's doing something uh, that is good, because I mean, he's at least working at something. So it's not all bad. He's doing good things. Okay, he's doing good things. But with good things, um, usually when you aren't 100% invested, it comes with also bad things that you choose.
Proud, to make me proud, to make each other proud. It takes a toll. It is a difficult job making games, and with that being
Good.
said, we built an amazing team at Intrepid, and it feels very much like a family. So getting up each day and going into the office and working with the colleagues at Intrepid is a delight.
I wonder what you talk about, because if you talk about random stuff and do some talk, or because it doesn't seem that your team is actually binding ideas and doing um, a very good work. Okay, it's I don't feel like this.
And it's something that I've thoroughly enjoyed over these years. And also being able to interface with you guys in the community who are fellow MMORPG lovers and enthusiasts, who have confidence and faith in us to deliver a product that is going to answer the call that many of you have. That is a very exciting.
See, he's aware of the fact that people have the call for something, and this show where his mind is at. He knows what people want, and he's just using that to make some, um, to make living and to make some. I mean, to make something. Maybe his intention is good, but he doesn't know how to achieve that. Maybe.
Prospect, and it keeps me very motivated. So that's always great. I guess I'll touch on this a point real quick. Recently I've heard some discussion um, from different parts of MMORPG genre and audiences about, why follow a development process? Why not wait until the product is complete? And,
This is exactly what you're doing. We are waiting until it's complete because you are not giving us anything.
try the product then and talk about it then. And I just want to stress that.
True, we need to talk about when it's complete to give feedbacks. Otherwise, what we are talking about? We are talking about hair, fried hair. We are talking about nothing. So nice.
As consumers of this product, as consumers of this genre, as players of MMORPGs, many of us have felt that the genre has gone in a direction that doesn't represent what the player base wants. And one of the very important aspects of our development process is that.
Why you skipped the previous argument? Now you are talking about something else, and why people don't feel like? Is that true? People don't like anymore the Ashes of Creation vibe. I'm happy to see that people actually don't feel good about it.
By having this following of the development, this interaction, this opportunity to provide feedback, this opportunity to get a look under the hood and watch development over time and see things progress and
What you are not made much development. You are not showing much development. You are showing models and ideas, but no actual gameplay.
communicate with the developers and give your thoughts and opinions and experiences. That's a very rare opportunity for the consumer to dictate the course, to a degree, to dictate the course of what a company or a product provider is giving you. And it's a rare opportunity because oftentimes these developments go for years without ever touching the consumer base from a feedback perspective. And the opportunity to provide iterative feedback during that process is lost. And when the product gets completed, there's not much you can do at that point other than hope to update in future expansions and correct and iterate in that regard. But as we know,
That's how it works. You make a video game and then you correct it.
a lot of products only have one chance at launching. Sometimes that's not the case. There are of course examples where that's not the case.
Launch isn't the final product. You launch the game. Yes, it's a completed product, but it's never truly completed.
But the opportunity to get involved early and during development is a very important consumer responsibility.
Yes, but again, we are not involved. You are just doing some stream to talk, to do some chit chat. How you say it? To do some random talk. We are not into your studio. We are not following your ideas, your designs. So we don't know. So no, you are lying, Steven. Just aware of the fact that you are just giving us minor content and very useless things. Okay, because if for you the content is saying to us that the video game will be good, then that's not content. That's a promise. One moment. Sorry, I skipped a little bit. It's just saying thank you for the fact that you participate. He of course always feel like he has to apologize, and I explained that in another video. Because he of course, if he, if he likes like he's just using people's to his own benefit. This feedback system. So he keeps repeating this like a maniac with no reason, and also those kind of live questions that are done in the lives are bad because he can answer like he want, but there is no one um, to uh, to face. Okay, so to face and dig and interact with, so you to get a much better answer. And so I mean he looks like a president, a politician, an Italian politician, and eh, you know what's the the idea that we have about politicians. It's not a, I mean, you got it.
I know that it is
It is
something that
doesn't
takes a lot of patience to
the
watch
patience.
something you've dreamed about or that you have a strong desire to play, um, and it is
And you
something
need
that's
to
difficult,
wait.
but we really appreciate it at the studio.
Oh, we appreciate your suffering.
All right, number 5. Question:
Oh,
when can we expect to see how secondary archetypes work in game? From the Dictator. So I've answered this in the past. We will be experiencing uh, secondary archetypes, and you will likely be seeing them very soon in some upcoming
Alpha 2,
streams,
of
but
course.
you will be experiencing them in Alpha 2 to some degree.
Oh, no,
Um,
really? I didn't.
this is really what makes a class.
Also, they said that they wanted to show us everything. Maybe the oh, sorry, the battery is low. I need to go fast. They said us that they wanted to show everything slowly, each kind of feature, to make everything clear instead of making one big. And they are doing the opposite. They are lying. They are liars. Um, because they will show everything in the Alpha 2 at the end. They're not showing anything to us. Just because they want to take time, of course. Okay. So let's now continue. I need to
Feel
charge.
different from an archetype. And to make sure we're clear on kind of what that terminology differential is, archetypes are the base 8 versions that you select. Classes are the combination.
See, he doesn't even understand what he's saying or his concepts. Just he put random names because he chose so, without even understanding what class and archetype means. Um, so, but I mean, it's all fine because archetypes and classes are very similar. So, I mean, classes um, are something that divide. Okay, that is something that doing classification. It's dividing the making different groups. Okay, of creating different groups. Okay, like a family, like a familiar tree, or I mean. Um, while archetypes are just much complex and idea. I mean, it's what the archetype is what makes the classes. For example, you have the archetype of white leaf. You have a plant, okay? You can have a plant that has um, that has certain characteristics, and this plant then divide into two different kind of plants. Okay, the genetics change, and so you have one plant that has round leaves, and another plant that has pointy leaves, and pointy leaves and round leaves are archetypes, but all those plants are uh, the groups that that door class represent are instead classes. So, for example, then you have the round leaf. You can then get another plant that has a round leaf, or maybe flame-shaped leaves. So, or also the point leaves then can maybe change again and make another round leaf, round leaf, the plant leaf, and then you have the archetype, the same archetype in two different classes.
Of the secondary archetype you select halfway through your leveling process. And it can dramatically change both the role as well as the active abilities that your primary archetype provides you. And so we want to make sure that Alpha 2 has a healthy amount of those secondary archetype choices, especially when it comes to augmentation of abilities, because that is an integral role in defining what these classes represent. So Alpha 2 is the answer to that. Number 6, next question. Can we expect to get any pre-alpha spot tests this year or early next year? And would those be on NDA? From Lineker 180. Yes, we will be having spot tests. Well, technically we're already doing spot tests internally. We do that right now, but we will be including spot tests with some of individuals from the community as part of the next several months. And those will likely be under NDA. And that's because there are specific core systems that are part of Alpha 2 that we want to test. These will be very short-geared tests, likely hours long, starting first with some portions of the community that are present from Alpha 1 and for Alpha 2. But when we have dates solidified for those tests, you will be receiving communication from our community team. And that will be through email, of course, to the accounts that you have registered with us. And you'll be made aware well in advance of when those tests are upcoming. And to remind you, of course, Alpha 2 is not under NDA. So when Alpha 2 starts, that will not be under NDA. Okay, question number 7. Number 7 top voted. Assuming that staffs are melee weapons, could you explain briefly what are the main differences going to be between orbs, wands, and spellbooks as magical ranged weapons? From Liss Pliss. So, some staffs actually will be ranged. Interesting note. Some staffs will be melee. The main differences between what orbs, wands, and spellbooks represent as magical ranged weapons are going to be in their weapon skill trees. And it's important to note and remember that weapons themselves have their own bespoke skill trees that, through using these weapons, will provide you passives as well as proc-based type benefits that you...
So basically, you, with those items, you basically do the same thing. You shoot magic, but they simply will have additional abilities that will improve certain statistics that are relevant to the magic that you use. For example, critical damage on magic abilities, or usual boring and old style stuff. So it's not any good news. I mean, it's something that work, but it's very old style.
can spec into as you are progressing within your experience of that particular weapon's skill tree. So that's the primary difference. But in addition, obviously, attack speed, attack range, different types of stat bonuses and waterfall stats that can be present on those types of weapons, those are all differentiators between not just ranged weapons, but melee weapons as well. Okay, question number 8. What are your plans to make healing skills fun, deep, and effective in action camera? And this is actually a question I'm not going to answer it in too much detail, and there's a reason for
Good.
that. We have an upcoming stream where we're going to be talking about the cleric in Alpha 2 and demonstrating some of the abilities and gameplay from the cleric.
Body language says bad things about you, Steven. I'm sorry. Body language.
And that's going to be coming up relatively soon. But you know what makes healing fun for a lot of healers?
But it also shows your determination and some good things about you.
For me personally, and I play healers often in MMOs. For me personally, it is almost like a little bit of a whack-a-mole type of game, right? Where if I'm in a party and I am the dedicated healer in that party, I'm very conscious of obviously conserving my mana for any spike situations that might call for me to be able to pinch heal. But I'm also kind of swapping and making sure that my rotations are timed appropriately.
See, his mindset is of the mindset of a player, way different from the mindset of a video game designer. And thinking like this, you make no improvements, and you simply design video games that have problems and are a copy of older video games.
And that I'm only utilizing skills from a minimal mana perspective that I need to, and I'm clicking across different members of the parties to kind of heal them as they need it, right? So a little bit of a whack-a-mole gameplay. When you're thinking about how to incorporate action as part of that, right? You have certain types of skills that you can use that are able to heal others, but are more skill-based, such as aiming that skill in a line-type template, or proximity-based, ensuring that I myself am near other members of my party and that they're aware of my location and I'm aware of their location in order to confer the benefit of that healing effect because it's proximity-based. Also, formation-based type effects. For example, there's a really cool skill that we just began working on for the tank, where you have a vector required for players to be behind that tank that mitigates damage incoming from a different direction. So there's directional based type situations that require location of players in your party to be.
That's good. Also, yes, healing. I mean, he's just saying that healing is going to be like all the other MMO, and maybe with a little bit more, maybe it's going to be a little bit more skill based. I hope.
Cognizant of those locations. I think all of those things lend to a compelling and engaging type of combat situation where if players are heavily synchronized in their gameplay, it feels really good. And getting off those types of abilities in maximum efficacy is the highlight of different types of combats for people, right? Being able to achieve those things. So proximity-based, template-based, the ability to do more skill-based type abilities is one of the ways that we make the healing type class and abilities more fun. What do you, okay, now question number 9. Excuse me, question number 9. I apologize again for coughing so much. Question number 9. What do you envision as the primary leveling systems for ashes? From Cato Ricks. The primary leveling systems. So that's a bit traditional in the sense that when you are in the game and you're talking about leveling your adventuring class, right, and that's your archetype and your secondary, questing and grinding are the two ways that are primary, right? Now, of course, you can achieve experience for your adventuring class through PvP, through artisanship and professions, through exploration, through raiding. But the primary methods are going to be a bit traditional in questing, story arcs, events, as well as through grinding mobs. And, you know, when I talk a little bit about kind of what that experience entails, my experiences that I've enjoyed in games is where a portion of your level does require you, or at least the adventuring level, to go out and interface with general populations, or to find a group and friends and level in a dungeon or in a group setting. I do not personally enjoy when the entirety of a level can be achieved through simply questing, where you move from quest to quest station and you just do that the entire way, and that will level you up to max level. There's a beautiful world out there in Ashes of Creation.
See, this is the harming mindset of a player that puts his style of playing above every other players. This is not the balanced video game designer view that people like me have, that puts equality above everything. And whenever you want to make, I know you are proud of what you want. You want prepare your ears to enjoy everything, but that's not how players. That's not how people want to play. Each player will want to focus on certain activities. And if you force players to do the same thing, it's going to end up you are going to end up making, you are describing the exact same design that Blizzard applied to dailies, to all those things. You are going to make the same horrible, messy video game. So, guys, never let experienced players design a video game. They should give feedbacks about how the video game is, if it is good or not. But never, they aren't made to. They aren't players that invest in something aren't going to be able to do other things. So, if I am an expert on making pizza, doesn't mean I'm going to be an expert on making soups. Okay, I can get some decent result, but it doesn't mean I know how to make soups, so a good soup. So different job require different talents. So that's why I believe this video game is going to be broken.
And while questing can show you some of that world, there's also an element of that world that is wilderness and explorative, right? Where by going out and grinding and
You
killing
should
general
not force players to do everything. Okay, that's the complete opposite. That's the complete opposite and wrong way to design video games. This is railroading, and you are contradicting yourself many times. because you are saying that you just take all the positive words that people enjoy to hear and you throw them like I mean like uh, make like they have no value. So you just say words because people think that because makes good publicity and make you appear better. Your video game have a lot of problems in regard to railroaded design, and it's not very much sandbox style. Thus, I mean,
Population monsters as part of your leveling process, you are helping lend towards the development of civilization. You're helping bring nodes up, and that unlocks additional quest lines and story arcs and events, right? So there's a little bit of an equilibrium between that in a more traditional sense. All right,
bad.
question number 10, and this will be the top 10 questions that were voted up. What are some of the biggest challenges at this point of time before releasing Alpha 2? Now, that is a good question. What are some of the biggest challenges?
Doesn't know.
Well, one of the challenges, of course, is going to be the QA process, right? And
He's not challenging himself on A1, he's just taking ideas. He's not working and being creative with his work. He's just taking an idea from you, from your feedbacks, and just you. It's not in the right way. Okay, he's just using them without. I mean, he's just doesn't have a idea or a design concept that is that challenges him. He just takes idea and decide what to put, what to implement.
we have a lot of rapid development at Intrepid Studios, which means that
He's not going to answer that. He's going to go around and talk about other things.
we will test things and iterate on those things fast.
Things fast.
And sometimes that can be a really good thing
Good
because
thing.
we get an
Bad
immediate, hands-on look and feel touch of a particular system or feature. And sometimes that pace of development can introduce bugs, and it can introduce just a lot of things that need to be kept track of as you're creating, the game. And that can be a tough process to find all those bugs and to make sure we fix those in time for a front-facing or public display.
That's not a challenge. That's the challenge are achievement you want to achieve. Those instead are problems. Your only achievement is to make a good a video game that will be remembered and you want to be famous maybe.
Of the product, and that's one of the dual-edged swords, the kind of thing of a transparent development process, is we're wanting to get things out there quickly and iterate on those so we can get feedback and iterate on that feedback. And in doing so, sometimes we can have bugs that are unintended. So that's one difficulty. Another challenge is the sheer scope of the content. Right? There's a lot, as I said before, there's a lot of content in Ashes of Creation. And that development, is a big effort. And obviously we have a lot of talented individuals on the team that I've talked about many
I
times.
mean, see how his face is suffering, bro, because he knows that he's going to repeat every time the same thing without even answering the question. He's starting to feel bad about his behavior, because at some point you are going to understand that you are living in a pond that are on I mean, you are like in the sand, in the quicksand. You can't move from your position, nothing changes.
In the past, you've seen them. We've talked about with them on live streams, but that is a big effort to create a lot of that content.
It's very sad. His expression is sad.
Would say one other element from probably a technical perspective when we think about big challenges is we have lofty goals when it comes to player density. And
He said about himself, of course.
being able to have a customized network solution that handles the type of player density we want to achieve. And you guys saw in Alpha 1, as we gave you a preview of that tech and that network capability through the sieges that we've done. And if you haven't seen them before, you can go on to our YouTube and you can...
Yes, maybe the thing that he worked on basically is maybe the node system. That is probably the thing that the only thing that is a little bit original, and this I think is going to be one of the best things about the game.
Take a look at some of the Alpha 1 sieges that we had, and it performed well. It performed very good. You know, a lot of the MMOs that I played in, when you have over 50 people in an area, things don't start, you know, things start to get a little bit choppy. And I believe in Alpha 1, we had a test with almost 300 people.
I mean, this is just Unreal 5 technology. I don't call this a challenge.
And I might be off on these numbers a little bit, maybe it was higher than that. But we had a test with about 300 people, and it was smooth. I mean, it was smooth. There wasn't, you know, aside from perhaps some people in their machines and rendering,
there were no mechanics, and there was lag, and it had the problems. So it's not a very useful test.
Right? On the network side, it was pretty smooth. The server's FPS was good, and there wasn't rubber banding. You know, of course, we had bugs every now and then that would come up, but during those sieges, it was a pretty good performance. But it's always a challenge because you're creating a game in an open world, and so there's not restriction on player movement. Right? Anybody can move across the world, and they can move into particular areas. And of course, we have network contingencies for how we handle when the server starts to go above what our intended density benchmark is, that we want to test both as part of Alpha 2 and moving forward. But being able to achieve that high player density is an integral component of what the system's design for Ashes of Creation is. In a castle siege setting, in a caravan setting, and naval battles, and in node sieges, all of those can lend themselves towards having a large portion of player density within a particular area. So that's always a challenge as well. All right, question number 11, and I apologize. Hopefully this isn't going, too fast for you guys. I want to try to get as many questions as we can within the hour. So question number 11. How is the render distance vision on the sea? And will an item like a spyglass be acquirable to in order to get a zoom in? And this is from Maisie0819. So render distance on the sea.
I mean, it's just a meaningless feature that if applied to the gameplay can be incredibly cool and useful, but I don't think they will use such feature very much.
The character render distance is going to be similar to what the character render distance is on land. So that's not going to change on sea. What, however, will be available to you that is going to be much further than the character distance is the ship viewable distance. So when you see other ships, depending on the class and size of that ship, you will see them on the horizon at greater distances just from your character's viewport, right? However, when you incorporate apparatuses like spyglasses, which we do have available, and it depends on whether or not the ship has that type of attachment both one, available to it, but two, equipped to it, because these are interchangeable attachment slots that you can choose to spec
Anyway, it's very cool feature.
your ship out based on the class of vessel you have, what type of attachments it can contain because of its class, and then what you're able to acquire as well. Thank you. Those are going to be available to you. And now those will provide you more of a overview radar perspective of the surrounding area around your ship. And the distances of that radar, essentially, will be also predicated on the class of ship and the type of spyglass or type of instrument that you are using. And it is important to note that you have an element of what's above the water, what types of ship are above the water, but also, as we know, we have, as you know, we have aquatic mounts also, which are capable of going under the water. And some of those mounts have abilities that affects ships that you can acquire. And as such, there will be other types of tools that ships can have in order to detect movement under the water as well. So that's important.
Cool.
Okay.
Lot of promises and cool invention and ideas. We still have nothing though.
Question number 12. Can we get a concrete list of professions and which artisan classes they belong to? That is a good question. And the answer is yes, we can get that. Actually, let's do it live. I can access and tell you what those are here. So,
I mean, he really is sick. His nose is full.
I'm sure the artisan team is likely like, oh my God, we're doing it live. We're doing it live. Okay, so we have three types of branches that exist within the artisanship system, as you know. We have gathering, we have processing, and we have crafting. And each of those, as you guys know, have different realms of applicability. Gathering, of course, is out in the wild. It's predicated on having the available tools. Those tools come from vendors, and you need to have supporting node structures in place around the world at certain levels in order to acquire certain tool sets that will allow you access to higher tier gatherables out in the wild. In the gathering profession, we have mining, we have lumberjacking or logging, we have herbalism, we have fishing, and we have hunting. So those are the gathering professions.
Skinning, maybe not hunting. The ability to skin, not to hunt.
In the processing, we have metalworking, stone masonry, weaving, tanning, lumber milling, farming, animal husbandry, alchemy, and cooking. And in the crafting, we have weaponsmithing, carpentry, arcane engineering, armor smithing, leather working, tailoring, jewel cutting, and scribing. A scribe. So,
well, it's a good list. I mean, it's probably better than World of Warcraft. It doesn't implement any new feature or anything, any improvement, but it's so far it's at least better. It's at least an old, the better version of an old style video game.
is that the first time we've released? I think that's the first time. Oh, okay. All right. So there you go. There is a concrete list of professions. Excuse me. Of professions in the game, and many of those will be available in Alpha 2 as well. And actually, as a point, as a note, something that we'll be collecting more feedback on is there is a gameplay layer to crafting. And those professions that I listed for the crafting, when you go to create a particular item, you will have the opportunity to interface with that gameplay layer. And for example, and this is something you guys will be testing, this will be probably one of the spot tests actually that's coming up before Alpha 2. For example, if you're creating a sword and you're crafting that sword, you will have an interface, a gameplay layer that you will see, and you will begin to hammer actually that sword into an appropriate outline. And your performance there can help influence the outcome of your craft in that sense. Now, this is something we especially want to give feedback or get feedback on. What is it like to interface with that type of gameplay layer? Is that something desired by crafters?
Yes.
Our designers, Corey, Brian, Mike, have done an awesome job in kind of deep.
Well, if you can design such thing, such you can make this fun. Yes, it's a good thing, and it makes crafting more enjoyable. The problem is if that thing simply slow down the process and it's not fun, it's going to be a problem.
Tailing out what each of these professions within the crafting realm will utilize.
Imagine being able to craft 100 armors in 1 second. This is just functional to the game because you didn't design a proper profession or a fun system. But to make armor and objects should take time and dedication if you want to design a profession that is fun.
From a gameplay layer perspective when completing these crafts. And I think it's interesting. I think it's cool. But getting player feedback on that, because this is something that is a bit different than what we're accustomed to in a lot of MMOs that we've played, especially from the traditional crafter's perspective. Getting your guys' feedback on that is something that's going to be important. So keep a lookout for that. Okay. Question number 13. How many active players, monthly subs, are necessary for the game to survive? That's an interesting question. And at how many active players would I consider the game to be a success? Well, that is a good question. I don't have a specific number of what is necessary for the game to survive. What I would tell you is that we have millions of pre-registrations for Ashes of Creation. And it has been absolutely phenomenal to...
It means nothing because those are all peoples that live of your lies and promises. So they are hyped people. You have hyped peoples that want to try your product. It's not like they will keep playing it. It's not guaranteed.
See the excitement that exists out in the community and in the genre itself of old school players, legacy MMO players who have wanted to see these types of systems merged into a single title for a while now. But more importantly, also a dedication and commitment from a company to ensure that the integrity of the game is not broken by pay-to-win monetization strategies or by pay-to-convenience monetization strategies. And I believe that has been a primary motivation for a lot of players to be excited about Ashes of Creation and to follow its development. When I think what the active player count will be on launch based on forecasts and projections that we internally create that are predicated on pre-registration growth, on average revenue per paying user that we've acquired so far, and those of you who have wanted to pre-order the game. I believe that we will launch with 1 million plus concurrent users. That is my expectation at almost a minimum. And to qualify that projection, when we think about the types of titles that exist within the MMORPG genre, we can observe what is this almost window of opportunity to present a next generation title that is utilizing a next generation engine like.
It's not a next generation title. Everything is based on old video games. There is no innovation or nothing very original. So next generation is just the graphic, the thing that you are showing us the most, and you are using to advertise your game. So
Unreal Engine 5.
I will speed up to end.
That has the visual fidelities that we are showcasing as part of our monthly live streams, and you guys can see the quality of the artistic development that our team has, and that espouses the types of design systems and philosophies that Ashes of Creation espouses, right? And when we think about watching at least just this year's development updates and the execution behind many of those systems, when we talk about the character creator, and we talk about weather and systems, and we talk about combat reiteration that we've done, and still what's to come this year. I think many of you will agree that execution has been pretty good. And let's just take the character creator, for example. It's been a goal of ours since 2017, since we first launched the Kickstarter.
So your execution is good because you made a system that no one ever seen and no one ever talked about or gave you any feedback. So you are just saying that you are good because you say it. That's broken.
We verbalized our desire to have a next generation MMORPG character creator, something that lives up to a particular standard from other games that we've seen.
So yes, you want to make everything great, but you don't know how. I have no idea.
Like BDO has an amazing character creator, and that was talk, that was goals, and it's great to kind of verbalize what those
character creator and model creator and the aspect creator are two different things, Steven. You should learn those basic things. Your character creation isn't available. You didn't show much. You didn't show it. Okay, so because you have nothing ready.
Things that we want to achieve are. And this year you got to see the first iteration of that character creator. And I think to many people's surprise, there was an execution there that held up to what our desires were and what our verbal goals that we stipulated were. So in that regard, when we think about executing on the designs and systems that we've talked about for so long and we've seen as part of the core feature set available in Alpha 1, I believe that Ashes of Creation will be one of the most popular MMOs. And that belief is a healthy belief. It is not a bad thing. It's not overhyping. It is, you want people who are working on this product to have a goal to achieve something great. And when you have those goals, that creates pressure, it creates excitement, it creates motivation. All of those things are ingredients in the recipe for success. So that's something that's an important and healthy thing to have. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, question number 14. How far along with completion of class combat are you? Is that like a percentage base? Are we going to see the Summoner, Cleric, Mage, Rogue, Bard before Alpha 2? Yes, we will see some of those before Alpha 2. How far are we along with that class completion? Well, there's a lot that goes into making a quote-unquote class, right? When we talk about what the crux of that is, it's the ability system, right? It is creating these unique abilities that have sometimes very bespoke mechanics that are involved.
He's smiling. Right? If you don't need to activate the disk, okay, and the text that you have memorized every time you don't know the answer. You just say we don't know. You just say the truth. You just say that. I mean, this looks so bad because it seems like they don't know when they are going to make the the core game mechanics. It seems like he doesn't know. It seems like that he's maybe never going to do it. He's just talking. He just don't want to say when the Alpha 2 is going to release. I don't know why.
Margaret's like, hey, you got to smile. I'm like, I know, I forgot. Sometimes I get too a little clinical when I talk about design, so I apologize.
Why you fear smiling? You should be free or to express your emotion. You are scared of expressing your emotions because you are lying. You are hiding your true feelings.
For that. But yes, so to answer that question, a lot of it is ability system. A lot of it is the combat feel, the movement, the weapons that you're using. And we've made a lot of progress as part of defining what those weapons are, how they feel, how they look, implementing the actual mechanics for them that are present in game now. And taking what we've learned from each of these and taking them on to the next class and to the next ability. And we constantly are building up that kind of repertoire of mechanics that are available in the ability system. Keenan and Adam have done an amazing job in supporting from an engineering perspective what capabilities are provided.
That's not how you design video game. You need to have some concepts and some precise logic and scheme how to make a class. So you should follow certain rules. It's not like you add things at random. So it just basically it's not going to answer this question. It's just not transparent. It's hiding things for. I mean.
To the design team in order to create these abilities. But then there is a lot of art that's required to sell the ability as well. It's not just the design and engineering that's necessary. It's Jim and John and Matt and the VFX team and the technical art teams that are accompanying the visuals and the effects for those types of abilities. And it's the sound effects requirement from Cat.
You don't need to make a list of what is a video game every time you want to appear competent. Let's go next. Let's skip, okay?
That pipeline is a long one. So when we talk about how are we doing in completion, we're doing pretty good. What is the intended leveling progression experience, considering node citizenship and the lack of much fast travel? From Landshark 10 or X, sorry. The intended leveling progression. So we know that we don't have a lot of fast travel. When we think about faster travel and what's available to us, we do have node to node travel. And that.
Do you have a travel system, a system designed to travel? Yes or not? They probably don't.
That starts out as land.
But maybe this is one of their stronger points. So maybe they can do a decent job and or a good job, because this is one of their things they work more. Okay.
Travel. So essentially, you can visit a building within a node, and you can pay a fee, and you can take a faster travel route across roads that we know that Vera has an ancient roadway system that was present prior to the fall, and that's utilized as part of these nodes when they pop up. They create connection points to these arteries, these road arteries essentially within the world. And the very basic building that you'll have access to starting at a node village stage of 3 is to jump on one of your land mounts if you have a land mount, pay a fee, and take a faster route to a nearby node. Now, you can upgrade that building at later stages, and that can now become a flight path as well. And that flight path can have longer direct connections to other nodes that also have a flight path upgrade. In addition,
Good to know. I
we
will skip
have
because
scientific nodes that
I don't have time, so I will skip. But yes, they have made something.
the metropolis is achieved, provide within network of that metropolis's vassal structure, the ability to teleport to nodes as well. So there is some faster travel.
So there is not a great design that makes the game feel more sandbox. It's just it's like more a railroaded style of traveling, contradicting your idea, your so.
Question number 16. If I'm a ranger and I'm 50 meters away, but I'm prone or crouched, you won't be able to go prone, just an FYI. And the jury's still out on the crouched. We're still talking about that. That's something that will require player feedback. In a bush, will my nameplate be visible?
That's a good question, because nameplates are a problem, and they aren't a good thing. It's just some good quality of life improvement. Something that you should not add in the video games.
Will Ashes of Creation lessen the visibility of nameplates based on the above so that players can stalk their prey? So, in this,
So now he's trying to jet an idea, because for sure he never thought about this feature, and a real game designer understands that video games are massive and always is open to things that he didn't talk about. But he clearly he need to show, because he's scared of being recognized as incompetent. He will try to say things to show he is competent. So he will not admit that he didn't he ever talk he ever thought about this feature. So yes, he's going to say yes. We already thought about this. We have ideas. We are doing a great job. We are indeed. We have some departments that are working on stealth, and I mean, and the rogue will have some abilities related to that. Cha 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 cha.
excuse me, in a sense, there are ways for you to obscure your nameplate. Much of that obscurity will come.
You had to think a lot to say that, don't you? It seems like a lie.
From line of sight related obstructions. If I'm behind a tree, if I'm in a large bush, those are ways that you could potentially obstruct the visibility of your nameplate. However, with that being said, the spirit of what I believe this question is attempting to achieve is the ability to reduce visibility of your character and your presence within an area. And in that sense, because we are more traditional in the sense of the number of skills that are afforded each archetype, we have particular skills that are intended to do just that. Those types of skills are things like camouflage, they are things like stealth and invisibility.
So yeah, I mean, this is an obvious question. Is I, he never talked about the name bar, but he's probably also he's for sure got considered. It's not something very hard to spot.
Um, they are things like disguises that can be used to perhaps even change your nameplate and visual appearance. We really want to be able to leverage utility-based skills in your skill tree composition so that if you would like to spec into this type of role, there are particular archetypes that excel better at those things. And that helps sell class fantasy, right? And there are really cool mechanics that you can incorporate as part of that. We have a lot of objective-based games.
Good, good. I mean, he's taking many good things, ideas from other video games, and he's making good, decent quality version of older MMO. But yes, but then there are many other problems.
Play. Your ability to move unseen on the battlefield is an important component. Number 17. Will archetypes like the tank or bard be as viable as DPS or healers in small scale PvP, such as ranked arenas? From Gorilla. And I apologize, but
He doesn't know that. They still didn't even design the classes. How can you expect such answer?
last question was asked by Legitimate Device 33. And if you have to say you're a legitimate device, are you a legitimate device? No, just kidding. Okay, the answer to this question is tanks and bards will be viable in PvP. Yes.
And that's a lie because you didn't design it. You can lie and say, yes, our game will work. You need to prove it, you need to test it. It's just making lies and advertisement. It's just throwing words at random without giving value and weight on the sentence.
They will be. And the reason for that is the design philosophy of a rock, paper, scissors type of relevancy across our trinity of class systems, right? And that is the ability for you to have opponents that you are naturally better against because of the types of class composition, skill compositions you have available to you in your class.
That's bad. I explained that. I will explain that and close the video. Rock paper scissors is made. This is designed to be able to fit in your hand. Your hand should be the class, okay? Your hand should not be your one single choice. If you choose this, and then this is if your class is this, you are going to lose versus rock, and you are going to break the fun and the gameplay, okay, of the game, of the rock paper scissor game, because you need the philosophy into the gameplay, not in the class. This is an incredibly horrible mistake that show you are not capable of designing video games, not you and your team. So you can't make classes that are stronger versus other classes and weaker versus other classes. Otherwise, you break the gameplay. Because otherwise, if you choose one thing, you then have no ability to play the video game anymore. You can't choose a different road. You can't beat the rock. You can't be defeated by the paper. So it's important. The hand is the class. Okay?
Yeah. So short answer to that question, yes.
So he just lied because the fact that he knows rock paper scissors, that is a balanced game, and it means nothing.
Question number 18. If a node gets destroyed in a siege or due to atrophy, will it leave behind any evidence? Physical ruins, NPC dialogues in other towns? And this is from Yawanosi, or
I
Yawana.
mean, you need to assign a system. No one care about such thing.
When a node develops into a city, if I am logged in 24/7 and I'm staring at the node, what is it doing? To answer that question, when a node has a level up event, it tells the server, tells one of the managers on our server, and it says, hey, I've reached the requirement necessary to level. And when that message, that notify goes up, the manager then says, awesome, we're going to spawn some system-driven caravans at a nearby starting portal, and we're going to send that caravan off to the node, and that caravan's not destructible, can't be destroyed. It's just a visual appearance, right? And you have this a bit.
There is an animation that changed the city, okay? That's it. Nothing very important.
Servers within the grid. It tells that manager, and that manager sends it down to the appropriate. Will there, okay, this is from Yin Kirby. Question number 31, if you want to bring that up. Will there be any castle sieges in the ocean, coastal nodes, where ships can be involved?
Good question. I hope yes.
And the answer is
I don't know.
yes.
Yes, good.
There are specific castle. There is a specific castle. I hope that you guys enjoyed the AMA. I know that getting certain questions answered can be a lot of fun, especially when there are some updates. We had some updates here. I'm glad you guys were able to get a definitive profession list. I'm sure that will have a lot of conversation. I know that Margaret and her team are going to be ready to pump out some articles perhaps in the future for that. And that's going to be kind of fun to hear you guys chat about. We'll be doing more of these again in the future, especially after probably Alpha 2. Another thing.
Okay, let me say random stuff, and thank you for following. And I hope I show you enough things to understand the real situation and the reality behind marketing and those kind of activities that seems legit, and but they hide bad intent too. Okay.